Welcome to the Intel Extreme Masters World Championships here live in Katowice. We will be taking you through the League of Legends tournaments over the next few days. It is going to be crazy. My name is Xscoundrel, ladies and gentlemen, and joining me on the analyst desk to start things off is the Prophet Crumbs and LCK veteran Papa Smithy. Guys, it is a pleasure to have you here. How are you feeling?
I thought I was out and they pulled me back in, only to be the only North American person here in general. To be fair, they hired me before the teams dropped out, but I still love League, love competitive play, and this is exactly
You've got to scout the better regions, right?
Exactly, right. Take the notes on the spy.
Humility already, and I've been following that IEM circuit. You know, started off in Oakland, went over to Gyeonggi, my home, and now here in Europe. Excited for this one. It could go anywhere.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. My first IEM. I'm joined by two veterans, like I said, of the trade. This is a big tournament, then we've got a brand new spread of teams willing to fight it out for that prestigious trophy. You know, this is a prestigious trophy. It has legacy behind it. You've got the likes of CJ Entus having won it, likes of SKT, TSM. They all have their names on this trophy. And not only that, they are competing for the lion's share of $150,000. Now, without further ado, I think I should tell you a little bit about the tournament itself. Over the next 2 days, we'll be looking at Group A and Group B, the two groups of the League of Legends teams that we have. Today, we'll go through some best of ones, and we'll have a winner's bracket final at the end of the day, which means we will have one team already qualified for the Spodek Arena. We'll have a team sitting pretty at the end of today, ready to take it on in those semi-finals and final battles on Sunday. So loads and loads of exciting things to come. Now, let's look at the schedule to start. You know, we want to look at what we're going to see today. We've got 4 best of ones, like I said. It's going to be, first up, M19 versus ROX. Then we're going to have H2K versus Hong Kong Esports. We're going to then have Kongdu Monster going up against Unicorns of Love. And then we're also going to have G2 versus Flash Wolves. Those will be our 4 best of ones. And then our winners bracket will be the Group A winners bracket. So the winner of our first 2 matches will go through to that best of 3. Let's start with Group A, gentlemen, though, because I remember talking to you before show, Crumbs. You said Group A, that's the group that if I'm going to put a bet on, it's not going to be the group that I was winning. Group B will be the group that I think is going to be the winner. So we've got Group A and Group B. You said that Group B was going to be the winner. Let's go through them individually. So Group A is that ROX Tigers, H2K, Hong Kong Esports, and M19. What you said is potentially the weaker of the groups.
Yeah, I mean, you have the strongest team here, undoubtedly being H2K, right? One of the best teams in Europe, but unfortunately the competition that they have is not the top of their region, the respective regions. You have M19 not being that #1 seed out of the LCL. You have Hong Kong Esports, again, not being that top of the team. And then the ROX Tigers, who again, aren't the best Korean team. But to be fair, the LCK super stacked this split, so having a poor record does not mean that you're a bad team.
And of course, it's one tournament, right? It's a 4-day tournament. It's on paper, certainly the highest ranking team when it comes to H2K. But the ROX Tigers, they're so polarizing. They have a lot of talent on the lineup. Their macro decision-making, sometimes not so great, but they have some stars. They certainly could, in a best-of-1 especially, or moving into the best-of-3s in one single weekend, get it together. And that would mean so much going back to Korea for them as well. So the stakes are certainly there. The expectations for Europe in Group A and Group B are sky high, but there's always a chance the dark horse comes away.
I mean, anything but a complete win for Europe here is just completely devastating. To be honest, if they don't come out winning here.
When's the last time that's been said at an international tournament, right? That's kind of a fun, that's a cool storyline.
I mean, this is important, but let's look at Group B now, gentlemen. That's going to be Kongdu Monster, it's G2 Esports, it's Flash Wolves, and it is Unicorns of Love. It is the stacked group, as you said, Crumbs. You know, this is the group, if you're going to pick a winner, it's likely coming from this group, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have 2 of the best teams in Europe right now. Even H2K themselves rate themselves below UOL and G2, so these guys are some of the best that Europe has to offer. And then Kongdu Monster, while they might be like, oh, they're not,
they're a strong 10th, right? That's kind of a weird thing to say.
Exactly, right? So they're not that bad. They have a lot of signs of promise here. This is a team that I cannot hit it enough how stacked the LCK is this split. If you have such a poor record and you actually look at the competition, you're like, how have they not lost more? And they're here and they're going to prove something.
And this is something that I wanted to touch on throughout probably this entire week. It's that we have the 8th and 10th LCK team, but this is the 8th and 10th LCK team that's going up against KT Rolster. They're going up against SKT. They're going up against these ridiculously strong Korean teams. When you have a record of 2-6, like the ROX Tigers do, it's a record of 2-6 that really just isn't that bad because you're losing to teams that would crush everybody.
I mean, you look at Kongdu Monster, you know, 1-7, 10th place team. In another region especially, that would be, okay, not even a contender. But what I'm going to say about this team is they're pretty good. Their macro is pretty good. Their micro is pretty good. But pretty good in a league with so many superstars and already the established names and then more names coming back to Korea. The field is so stacked that pretty good gets you 10th place. But at this tournament, they still have a chance. Again, they don't have to worry about losing so many best of threes. They have a chance to come in, shed the kind of struggles they've had in the LCK, and show us something to remember. And there's always that outside chance with this team.
And there would just be such a tremendous confidence boost for these teams to be able to play against the top teams of another region that has made the semifinals in Worlds, right? These teams, if they can actually, or quarters, my bad. Yes. Let's not get ahead of ourselves here just because there's 3 European teams. But being able to take some games here, engage themselves, not only allows Korea to know where they stand if their bottom teams do well or do poorly, but also for the top European teams that are looking onwards towards incredible international competition to see how well can they perform when it comes down to fighting against the top teams of top regions.
And let's make sure to mention the LMS as well. 2 teams
Absolutely.
here, Hong Kong Esports, a middle-of-the-pack team. We really don't know what to expect there. Obviously, they came in very late in the picture, replacing EDG. But Flash Wolves are undefeated, again, in match score. Flash Wolves, at Worlds, they didn't impress, but previously had been the Korean Killers, previously had put in lots of great performances. So Flash Wolves certainly, as always, it seems to be the storyline, right? Dark horses for this tournament.
And I want to touch on one major storyline that I think everyone at home will be asking as well, especially our European fans. Is it a complete disappointment if one of the European teams don't walk away champion here?
Yeah,
I think you have to say
totally.
yes. It's a one-word answer. I think it has to be yes, because you've got, what, 3 out of 4 in terms of the top teams? Misfits not here, but 3 of the other top teams, top performers. Apologies to Fnatic on that one, but regardless, very good teams are here. Less than a win is a disappointment.
And obviously G2, they probably have the most weight out of any of the European teams on their shoulders because they've had such previous poor performances at international competitions. This is their time to step up and say, actually, with our year of ridiculous success, let's not paste it any other way. G2,
Domestic.
Yeah, I'll have you on that one, Papa Smithy.
To be fair, the pressure is even more on because of the domestic success that they have had. They haven't lost in Europe for an entire year, and that just means that because the tournament has so many European teams, not only are they expected to come out ahead on all the European
You know what my
teams.
favorite semantic is, Crumbs?
What?
We're in Europe. So they lose here, that streak.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Well, let's move on from Europe because we have our first teams ready for our first match of the day. It's going to be ROX Tigers versus M19. So without further ado, let's welcome them onto stage. So, gentlemen, ROX Tigers representing the LCK, M19 representing the LCL. Who are we looking out for from M19, Crumbs?
For me, it's got to be PvP Stejos. I mean, we know this guy can be a very aggressive jungler, and the champion pool for the jungle right now fits him perfectly. You know he can play Graves, you know he can play the hyper-aggressive junglers and carry, but more importantly in this matchup, his synergy with Kira to gank mid lane is really good. They have been able to gank some of the best mid laners before, snowball off that lane, and have tremendous success. And when they're up against the likes of Mickey, a guy that can go 10-0 or 0-10, you're looking at a potential disaster.
And Papa Smithy, you mentioned something really interesting to me, that obviously the standout personality when they were Albus Nox Luna at Worlds, it was Licorice. You know, he was the guy that had those motivational speeches on stage, and you know, I think he endeared a lot of the public to getting behind his image. And at that time, he was almost ahead of that support meta curve. I mean, he was playing the stuff that we're seeing getting played on a regular basis now. Now that it is meta, how does he stack up?
That's kind of an interesting thing. You look at his champion pool, and it's like, wow, suddenly that's meta, right? Zyra became the pick ban champion. I was talking to him yesterday. He was talking about not a big fan of Malzahar, so that's the one non-meta pick he can't approve of. But the Tahm Kench, the European favorite, is here. We have to remember also this matchup simply was one of the interesting kind of delayed best of twos, or specifically that second game where Albus Nox Luna, even after they had showed their hand, a second week, they were able to beat the ROX Tigers. Now, ROX Tigers are a very different team. You asked about who the person was to look at M19. If you're looking at ROX, it's all about Mickey, that mid laner for the ROX Tigers. His stats in the LCK in Korea are crazy. Number 2 in kills behind some faker guy, you may have heard of him. But number 1 kill participation, 78% kill participation for a mid laner is a pretty insane number. Number 1 percentage of team damage in the whole tournament. So literally shouldering the kills the team's damage, the kill participation. He loves the Zed. They love to set up around him. If he has a big game, ROX Tigers can take down anyone, but you know this as well as I do.
know it, but
the if he has the big game. The if is kind of the operative word.
Exactly, but then the stat of the percent damage of the team, that's great, right? He's kicking ass, he's doing so much work, but that also means that the team is not really living up to the standard. The percentages from your other teammates should be, keeping up to make sure that a player isn't that ridiculously stand up, but that's not to take away from this guy's ability.
I mean, you mentioned an interesting point there, Papa Smith. You said this is a rematch from Worlds. Admittedly, this is a reformatted rematch from Worlds. This is ROX Tigers in an iteration that just aren't the same level that they were last year in December. If you've never seen ROX Tigers since Worlds, well, boy, you're in for a surprise because it's not the same level of competition that we're expecting from them.
And there's certainly people that just watch the international tournaments like, okay, where's Korea at? ROX Tigers, I heard of them, Peanut, all the other great players, Smeb, where are they at? Well, they're not here. This is a new roster. If you were watching last year at all, the Afrika Freaks became ROX Tigers in many ways. 4 of these 5 players, support not included.
What you're seeing on the replay there is the old ROX Tigers. I mean, that is the level of play dominating G2. I mean, that is not what we're expecting here from these guys, and I think it would be unfair for us to put that on them because, again, like they said, they haven't had that success in the LCK. However, you've talked about that potential to have an almost Faker-esque carry from the mid lane. They still are an LCK team who have taken games from LCK teams in that region. So it's not like they're a bad team.
And my favorite thing about Mickey is he kind of plays as if he thinks he's Faker. He certainly has the moves from time to time, but he's a supremely confident mid laner. And we're in an international tournament. You got G2, for example. Perkz has had some of his confidence issues in the past. Looks a different player this year. But now we're at an international tournament. We'll see if Mickey can be that same player that he is in Korea, but he plays as if nameplates are off. Doesn't matter if it's Faker, Kuro, anyone. He will also always look for an advantage and play aggressive, and that really endears him to me because I like players that can play that style.
I love how you bring that up because the European teams seem to take a similar tendency where they just have no respect for what the opponent can do. They play their game. We know what we want to do. We know what works. We're going to do it. And if they get killed along the way, unlucky, we'll do it again. And that kind of idea, that kind of play style makes for very explosive games where it's aggression on aggression as opposed to more teams looking to play a little bit more of defensive. So it makes for a lot of excitement and a lot of kills.
So I want to touch on M19 now as well before we head towards Champion Select. M19, when they were Albus Nox Luna, they dominated their region last year. They were that best team in the LCL region. It's not the same anymore though, Crumbs.
Unfortunately not. They do have a different AD carry now. They have Vincent Vega filling in now, but they have just been able to not overcome their issues, and it might just be a case of the spotlight having been put on them. Obviously, a region that was previously considered wildcard, a label that has completely been shattered at the hands of them, is now kind of expected to perform at a level that is renowned internationally, and that might be a little bit too much to handle. However, I do think that this team at Worlds showed a lot of promise in teamwork. They were struggling in the laning phase, which might be their downfall here against ROX Tigers. However, if they can make it past that point, they have shown that they know how to do Baron. They know how to close games. They understand macro. And if we can see that happen with a solid composition, this matchup might be a lot closer than we expect it to be.
I mean, you dive into the stats also of the LCL, the CIS region where they play. They're 1-1 every week. So they win a game, they lose a game every week. They play best of ones, which is unique. Of course, best of 3 is now the dominant format for the other prestigious regions. So they are used to picking up the best of ones. They are picking up wins every week, but the consistency's not there. Consistency in a tournament setting is kind of lesser thing. It's all about can you perform on the day. If they've got some special pocket picks, Licorice was talking about having something secret. Who knows what that is? He's surprised us before. They've surprised us before. So it's just really interesting to see which ROX Tigers and which M19 we see in a best of 1 on this day.
And I want to just bring up the fact that this is an international competition, because international competition in League of Legends, when it comes to performance, seems to be a completely different beast in itself. We look at G2, undefeated in their domestic region for over a year, but international competition, they flop. What is it that Albus Nox Luna have that experience of performing highly at international competition? Do you think being here, the moment, the adrenaline, that aids to their success?
Well, not only that, one of the bigger things about international tournaments that's exciting is that when you play domestically, a team takes into account everything that they do in their environment, the solo queue that they play, the scrims that they have. It's all relative to their matches, so they have a lot more information and background info to work off of, whereas when you play internationally, you have to shed all of that as it's no longer relevant. You're playing against new teams, people you've never never seen before, don't even know what their playstyles are like. And so you have to bring in what you think is the most general and overall strategy to succeed. And therefore, your playstyle changes, and you kind of, both teams just show their hands as to what they think is the best way to play League of Legends from what they have learned. And that creates that excitement that we all crave for international tournaments.
And we should always talk about preparation, because some of these teams have had a lot of preparation. You look at ROX Tigers, played an LCK game on Sunday, Korean time, last team to come in. Word is they didn't really get much scrim time because of flight arrivals. They're going to be coming off pretty cold in terms of recent practice. They've never played on 7.3 either, was 7.2 last week. So when it comes to some out-of-the-game factors, you have to note them. You know, they are coming in cold.
However, if you take any lessons from the North American LCS, it is that playing scrims can often make you worse.
Ah.
So if you don't practice, you might actually have a chance.
That's some NA logic right there from your drop. I like it. I like it. This is why we brought you out over here.
Just so you can bring the North American logic over here that scrims are bad. Just so I can cement that in place right now. North America says scrims are bad.
You can't lose scrims if you don't have
I mean, Crumbs is pretty. You're about the very straightforward statements recently. So yep, scrims are bad. You can add that one to the list.
Right, guys, we're into Champion Select already here between M19 and ROX. Best of one, remember, so this is an incredibly important part of the game. Rengar and Zyra gone already. What are we expecting to see for the rest of the bans, do you think?
I think that the bans so far towards M19 with the first ban Rengar, you normally expect it to be in the red side, but however, because it is 7.3, they might not be valuing the pick so highly because you do need to craft a composition around the Rengar. So I think that the Graves might be the first pick that we're looking at from Stejos, but the tons of support targeting from ROX.
I mean, it's also the support picks that they remember from Worlds, right?
Yep.
The brand is on the list again. Feels like No Face back in the coach booth. They're, all right, guys, we're at Worlds. Got to get rid of these picks. What they remember from that 50-minute game.
The old notebook.
But of course, No Face not here anymore. And ROX Tigers, you know, you look over, you remember Lacrit's reputation is out there, so that's why we're seeing the targeted bans. But Zyra on 7.3 got target nerfed, is weaker in lane. We weren't even expecting it to be a big contested pick, so a bit of a surprise to see it banned already.
At least it shows some respect with the brand band. And
Is this a Graves first pick for M19? Given
Or
that
Camille.
Or Camille. Yeah, oh my word, yeah, Camille's made it through.
However, there are no top lane bans except potentially Jay, so there are matchups that Camille can suffer with right now. She tends to take a little bit longer to spike now. You need Shen. There's the Poppy as well. And
But there we go.
it could be any role, to be honest, right? We have seen her play everything but AD carry, but that role is kind of meh.
It's been toned down quite a bit on 7.3 as well, so not quite the surprise. The LeBlanc ban certainly was expected. Worth noting that you will notice that Shy is not on the roster for ROX Tigers. He played in Sunday's win over BBQ, only the second win they'd had all season, but they're going with Linderang. Shy unfortunately had to pull out due to some personal obligations. So looking here, pretty standard stuff on red, but a big priority on the Malzahar. I guess outside chance that it's a flex pick, but again, ROX did not have a lot of prep time. It came in late. Maybe it's a sign of some 7.2 strategies for the ROX Tigers.
Well, not just 7.2. Korea seems to be one of the regions that prioritizes Elise a lot more than anybody else. It is one of those champions that you have to play really well and be very precise with your movements. Otherwise, your early game goes poorly and you don't transition well into the late game. But what this tells me is that with all the CC that they have, they're looking for a lot of action early. Picks like Renekton in the top side right now have been so incredibly potent that if we see that into Camille, I mean, Renekton Elite is one of the deadliest combos.
And we could see something like the Shen Zed that wrecked so hard against BBQ, a pick comp also with something like the Shen in the first round. In Korea, we traditionally see AD carry support and jungle in the first round to leave that ambiguity for the second round. But there's a chance you take Shen, which will be very high priority, especially with the European teams here, or you just go for something safe like the Jhin, because Jhin is the one champion Songyun's kind of flourished on. 5-2 on the Jhin, 2 wins on Ashe, no other wins on any other AD carry. So they're going to take the Jhin. It also makes it pretty natural for them to start targeting AD carries in the second round of bans.
So we're in the second ban phase here. Graves getting taken off by ROX Tigers. Like you said, PPE Stejos, he really has a good amount of history with Graves. Now Graves has become meta. You know, he's basically being respect banned coming out there. Renekton goes down. The Prophet Crumbs is here again. Renekton goes down. That's against the top lane matchup. Do you think this is going to be a strategy to ban out top laners now for M19 in the second draft phase?
It could be, but there really haven't been any other top laners banned, and usually you don't see that strategy come out if there are no previous bans in the top side. So it might just be a pick to make sure that Camille stays safe in the top side as she can scale properly.
The Shen is the big question mark, because Shen has been seen as like a holding lane for Camille. Certainly not a winning lane, but you manage through it. It's pretty comfortable for the Shen. And again, Shen Zed was the duo that worked so well for Rox. That was with Shy, who's not in the roster. Another containment champion for the Camille is banned away. This could be some pretty familiar stuff from Rox if they want to go that way. They do have last pick potentially.
There is the option for the Shen. There is the option for the Fiora, which is considered in some ways a skill matchup versus the Camille. People often give Fiora the edge, I suppose, in some instances. But you know, there's plenty of options open for Rox right now.
Well, you have to respect the fact that Camille can be a flex pick right now.
Yeah.
You have seen her everywhere, so going with a mid laner or potentially even the top, obviously that's really ambitious to say that's a top laner, so we're most likely just seeing an Echo top, and they want to make sure that M19 shows their hand before.
You say this, but this is Mickey. He loves mid lane Echo, 1-0 on the season on that Echo. Rox look best when they play 4-1, when you have the Zed or the Echo split push.
Love it.
There's
Whoa.
a champion you don't see very often in Korea.
I absolutely love. So this pick makes a lot of sense because you have 2 carries already, and that means that it's no longer MF support. That's Misfortune in the AD carry with Tahm Kench. So they have such a tremendous amount of team fight prowess and peel back with the Ivern, with the Camille split pushing. But it's all about that top side now with the Camille being shown, and whatever pick they go with Rox in the top side will have to be attended to.
And this is already fascinating because it's going to be a 4-1 or a 1-3-1 depending on this last pick against the group siege comp. We've seen so much
Fiora.
double AD come through in Europe, and the Fiora that they flashed before. Linderung does have a single win on Fiora this season, doesn't have many of those. He's actually been the underperforming top laner of the two, just a 20% win rate with Linderung. They go risky, so 1-3-1 is super powerful from Rox, but grouping is super powerful on the side of M19. This is fascinating already.
It is a really exciting draft, considering that there's a lack of wave clear on the side of Rox Tigers, whereas the Siege from Corki Misfortune and the Ivern, while Ivern has been nerfed on 7.3 and he's no longer able to have Daisy practically be a 6th champion, the Siege potential is still there due to the lack of wave clear from Rox.
It's a fun thing also. There's been one game of Ivern in Korea. KT also ran it once. The word around Korea is they don't think Ivern's a very good pick. They just looked past it completely. How much preparation could Rox Tigers have against the Ivern pick?
Might come bite them back in the ass.
In the what? Sorry, could you clarify
Sorry,
that?
could you just repeat that sentence?
My microphone.
Anyway, we're going to jump to a quick break. When we come back, it will be Pyrotechnics and Vedius taking you through the first game of the day here, ladies and gentlemen. Stick around. This is going to be intense.
everybody. Welcome to the Caster Desk. I'm Pyrotechnics, joined by my main man, Vedius. Are you ready to get going for IM Katowice, the World Championships, Vedi?
I am very ready. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I think that we have two exciting teams, two struggling teams in their respective regions. But I think when you look at the compositions they've been able to draft for themselves, they actually should be able to play their own style. So I'm very excited to see what they can both bring out.
Yeah, M19 definitely used to the whole best of one style themselves, and they were known as Albus Nox Luna for bringing out that crazy stuff. A couple of mind games maybe with forcing that brand ban, just general by having Liquid on the roster. I really like the way they've got this team fighting comp.
I really like it, and something that they were praised for back during the World Championship was their ability to team fight. And when you look at their regular season performance, that seems to be the way that they love to play, right?
Whether they're winning or they're losing,
whether
they just
they're
go
winning
for
or
it
losing,
anyways.
they will always try to force fights. If you push them back into a corner, they are not afraid to suddenly pull the trigger, and that is what's most exciting about this team. And that's why I think it'll be fun to watch how they play against ROX Tigers, because when you look at their jungler, he is the type of player that does look for early invade. Something that he does very often during the regular season is about level 3, level 4 on Elise. He will always either go for an invade or an early gank. And this is a great opportunity to snowball Mickey, to get that Fiora ahead up in the top lane for Lindarang, and really enable this 1-3-1 or 1-4 to be set up for the team.
Yep, we'll see how it goes as we load up onto the Rift. The first game of this IM World Championship. Keeping an eye on that bottom lane for now, but we will definitely have to visit top soon enough. That one is explosive. We have seen the Camille Fiora matchups a handful of times. This once over in Europe.
Well, over in Europe, it's very rare to let a Camille through the pick and ban phase.
Even on 7.3.
Yep, ladies and gentlemen, if you were unaware, this is patch 7.3. This is the nerfed Camille, so a couple of changes have happened to her. Overall, her damage output is down. The slow on her W has been slightly reduced. The big nerf that hit her was actually the changes to her E, where now you only get the attack speed steroid if you actually land the stun. So if you fail to land it, it's a great opportunity. Or playing against the Fiora, that's the skill that you want to riposte, because that will give you a big edge in terms of the 1v1.
Yep, always got to keep an eye on that one. We'll still see if Smurf is able to cut down Lindarang in these matchups. We'll expect to be seeing some big split pushes, but the team fighting for M19, that is something that they've definitely built a comp towards. Bit of the mind games with the early MF lock-in. Ended up being their AD carry, something Vincent Vega has done a handful of times over in the LCL. And Liquid on this Tahm Kench. They have a lot of protection, and if you are the ROX Tigers, you don't know that much about this Ivern because it is not played in Korea, as was stated by Papa Smithy. It's just not a big thing for them. They don't think it's strong.
And that's an excellent point, Pyro. We should keep a close eye on both junglers pathing, because something that we've seen a lot over in Europe is the cheeky steals that you often see from the Ivern.
Yeah, we're used to this guy.
Start topside, he's going to look to potentially invade over onto the red. If you look at your minimap, you can see a ward has been placed on the blue buff. So ROX Tigers are very aware of the potential for Ivern to steal away those early objectives. And it's interesting that Seonghwan has even pathing in a way where he can immediately rush towards the bottom half of his map to guarantee that he is able to get all three of his buffs. And you want to then see what Seonghwan likes to do, because he'll either go for an aggressive invade, try and shut down the Ivern early on in the jungle, or he'll look to try and set up an early gank. Potentially either bot side or in the mid. Usually he likes to spend it around mid lane because we know how much of a hyper carry this Mickey individual is.
This is true, but Kira's playing it very safe. He picked up that Corki, and you know, it is kind of been the perennial, I know this other guy is going to try to all-in me. I'm going to play something safe enough. I can Valk out of danger. So Kira, that kind of is his preferred style. He is your prototypical mage player, but Mickey, he wants to go all in all the time.
He really does, and by playing Echo, he's going to have an opportunity to do it. Now keep an eye on what Seonghwan likes to do. He has picked up the Scuttle Grab, and already, look, going straight in towards the enemy jungle. The ward had already been set up by Mickey to get vision in, to track where Stasios was, and this is something that Seonghwan always likes to do on Elise. And a lot of respect coming out from Stasios to not stick around for that potential invade.
He's going to be able to get the counter jungle off too, and Stasios himself actually didn't opt to going into Seonghwan's jungle. Instead, he's hanging around the top side, see if he can maybe bait an attack out as Lindarang is pushed very far forward, but is backed off. And Stasios is actually just going to go back to base himself.
Again, keep your eye on that jungler for ROX Tigers, just posturing around the mid lane, always looking for an opportunity to get an early snowball. And throughout the regular season, this is something that ROX have often relied on, the success of Seonghwan in the early game to get that advantage for his laners, with which will allow the ROX Tigers to have a good 1-3-1 setup come the mid game. And he's a very exciting jungler to watch because of how polarizing he can be. He either gets a really good start for his team, or he gets a little bit too over-aggressive and gets punished.
Speaking of aggressive, that flash from Stasios, he's able to throw the root collar and can't quite close the gap on Seonghwan. Didn't even burn his flash to get out of the way, and that's going to be great for ROX Tigers right now. They get a summoner for free.
Very surprised that Stasios would burn his flash to try and get the lockdown onto someone. Hey, if it landed, maybe it would have worked out.
It's always a genius play if it works,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But he didn't respect the spiderlings that you get when you turn into spider form, wasn't able to get the lockdown. So for now, things will return to normality. But when we look at some of the lanes that have been going on, top lane, slight advantage in favor of Lindrang, his pressure being applied in the top. And I think it's interesting because when you look at the two top laners throughout the regular season, Lindrang has typically been put on tanks. He's played a lot of Maokai, a lot of Poppy, and Smurf in the past. Ooh, hang on a second, in the bottom lane.
Yeah, this flash is being burned already. Licorice was the one pushing him back. Vincent Vega more occupied with the farm for now, but he's been able to catch back up in it. But they forced the two summoners out of Songhoon right now. So they'll be able to keep them pushed back. He doesn't really have any mana here, so to speak, to work with. He's able to get a couple of Voidlings out, but Vincent is having an easy time with this farm as they force the back from Songhoon.
Licorice playing hyper-aggressive, as he has always been known for, looking to take advantage of the zero-mana Malzahar, where they're able to get both summoners. And this is really big for the bottom lane of M19, because personally one of the biggest criticisms I've had of Rox Tigers is their underperforming bottom lane. They often just make very simple laning mistakes. They don't probably know how to set up the wave to push properly, and because they overextend, they don't manage the wave as efficiently as they should. They end up getting punished for it, and we're seeing that right here.
Yeah, and that's a good sigh of relief for M19. It looked like they were getting pushed in a little bit too hard. But I do want to go back up to the top lane. That's where Stejos is actually on his way right now, and Lindrang still has that CS advantage, but he's looking to see Stejos is if he can get Smurf ahead on this one. Smurf is trying to play the bait game, still a few minions, but he's not trying to hold the wave too far, and Lindrang is able to dodge out of the tack sweep, but in comes the Ivern. Root Caller's gonna land, Riposte is on, but there's not a whole lot of mana. He's gonna have to burn his flash out of the hook shot.
Good gank from Stejos, utilizing the vision advantage that he has. But immediately, the counter jungle from Seonghwan, trying to take advantage of the fact that he knows Stejos' top side, and he's very quickly building up a strong level advantage between the two junglers. You can see level 4 to level 5, the CS differential, absolutely monumental very early on into the game, and that's just because Stejos, he's paying a lot of respect to this Elise early on, but he's also investing a lot into trying to set up these early games.
Yeah, and he's not only doing that, he's not giving up a whole lot of jungle farming while he's at it. I mean, when you're up against an Ivern who can pretty much take those camps really, really quick like that, well, getting ahead on the CS, obviously different values with the neutral creeps these days, but still, Stejos is finding himself a little bit farther and farther behind on gold for the time being. Seonghwan trying to get that snowball off up in the top lane again. Smurf gets a bite taken out of his health bar by Lindrang. We'll be curious to see how he plays on this carry. As you mentioned, he has been typically the one to be put on tanks, but this time around it's a bit of a different draft out of the Rox Tigers.
Now look at what Rox are doing. They've managed to get a good push down in the bottom lane. They're using this as an opportunity to get some decent vision control around the bottom half, and this is because Dragon is going to be the next objective for them. Seonghwan, he has the level advantage. We talked about it earlier on, and if they were to force a Dragon, this would be a better time for them to utilize it. The big problem that they have is their AD carry has no summoner spells, their top laner has no teleport, which means that it would be a 4 versus 4 very early on into the game, which is something you have to be careful of when you're fighting champions like Corki and Misfortune.
Yeah, you have to be careful. Lindrang had expended that teleport to come back to lane after being pushed a little far out. Now with level 6 on, Smurf and Lindrang might really start to go for the jugulars, respectively, still sitting on item components. The Tiamat for Lindrang, matched by the Sheen of Smurf. The Smurf is not necessarily the kind of player to really play these big carries-oriented top laners either, so he's also out of his comfort zone.
And I think this is a nice adaptation from what we saw from the World Championship in particular, because Smurf, he could only really play Poppy, right? That was the champion that he was thrown onto.
Fortunately, you could do that a lot at Worlds.
Yes, he could. It was definitely an optimal champion, but tanks were his sort of thing. And something that we saw against H2K is Licorice flashes in.
Yeah, he really wants to go deep right now, see if he can get it Nam on, and he does, spinning Songhoon right into Vincent Vega for a stylish first blood.
M19 get themselves the very first kill of the game, as Smurf and Lindrang going at it.
It's a grand challenge right now, but Smurf is going to lose out. He burns his flash at the end. Oh, it feels bad, man.
Big misplay, and Mickey now in the mid.
Yep, Kira finding that Mickey is right on his front, throws the Time Winder out. They're going to be able to back off for now, but that was a lot of action in all 3 lanes.
A lot of solo deaths, not something that you would necessarily expect, but very exciting nevertheless. The fact that Vincent and Licorice were able to get themselves a solo kill down in the bottom lane is going to be massive for them, because they should be losing this lane. Malzahar should be the one shoving them underneath that turret. They should be the one suffering from the pressure. But Songhyun and Ki end up losing in the 2 versus 2, and this is something that they have been consistently doing throughout the regular season of the LCK, one of the big weaknesses for the ROX Tigers that they have now been punished for.
But that was also against the other Korean bottom lanes in the league, and you always have to talk about a team that is lower ranked on the schedule, but against all of their opponents in Korea. Obviously, that is somewhat less of a sin. But even a middle-tier team in the LCL right now, their bottom lane is doing it. Legendary Lecrit, as a support, but Vincent as well. That was a great combination play by them. Yeah, be careful if you're ROX.
While we must praise M19, we almost also criticize them. We were just talking about Smurf, how typically he is put on tanks, and we were expecting to see a little bit more now that he's playing carries. He's actually been playing a lot of carries during the LCL, but so far, dying in the 1 versus 1 is really not what you want, especially when you look at how important these two top laners are going to be moving into the later stages of the game. Remember that both of them are looking to be a primary split pusher, both of them need to be able to go to a side lane and win that 1 versus 1. And if you're already dying this early on into the game, it will really hurt your impact come the mid to late game.
Not only that, you can see Smurf set far behind on the CS, just by virtue of being pushed back. Songwon is trying to push back the vision game from M19. He's hanging in that bottom. There's a lot of wards invested. They really want to go down to this bottom and get the kill off on Vincent and Licorice, who, by the way, burned both their flashes to make that solo kill happen.
The big risk you have is diving a Tahm Kench. Always dangerous. There's a lot of single target damage. You'd have to focus the Tahm Kench, but then that allows the Misfortune to just walk back and be like, I'm going to kill you all with bullet time. Yay.
Yeah. AD carry MF hurts a lot more because people are expecting to support MF now. Mickey and Songwon are right on top of Licorice. That's one way to get rid of him. The bullet time comes in, but there is also a curtain call. Vincent tanks too. Can't get hit by any more than that. And under tower, Songwon gets taken out. ROX Tigers unable to juggle the aggro any further, and it ends up being a 1-for-2 trade, but Kira has something to say about that. Fox Bomb is on, and he takes down Key.
He can keep going for this if he wants. He has to be aware of the minion wave, but he does have Stagos there to support him.
Oh, they've cut off Mickey right now. Nowhere for him to go except phase diving right back on in. He's got a shield on, and he's going to come right back, snapping to kill Kira. And now the teleport from ROX Tigers completing. Linderang leading the charge, and Stejos finding himself without an ally as he rushes to get back under tower. It's become a very messy game already.
So it's ROX that's able to come out ahead overall. Yes, they lose 2 members, but they're able to get 3 in exchange and burn a lot of summoner spells. Stagos just doing what he can to mitigate the back timing so you can get a bit more pressure in the top lane. But the fact that M19 was struggling there really shows the risk that you have when playing against an Elise. Now, Licorice, I can only assume that he was predicting the dive. He wanted to get there before they were able to set up, but the vision was enough from Key because he used the Q on the brush. They were able to lock him down. He was nowhere near his AD carry who could potentially provide him with support. But when Kira joins the fray, this is when you think things can start to swing in their favor. But we talked a lot about how Mickey as an individual is always looking for that outplay. And look at how much time he buys in a 1 versus 2. He moves to get himself the shield. There's not enough damage from Stagos to shut him down. He has the Chrono Break then to just get enough damage and a bit of heal back to be able to turn it around and allow Linderang to come in with the teleport and force Stagos back.
And it's quicker reaction time too, because Smurf actually had teleported about 1.5 seconds later than that, and he ends up canceling it up top, so he burns his summoner spell. ROX Tigers come out ahead. They have themselves, it's only 500 gold lead, but 12 minutes in and it has been a big bunch of kills traded back and forth that helps ROX out.
When you look at what this means for the overall game, though, ROX Tigers now have a very strong Fiora. They've got Mickey, who's got 2 kills and is the standout star player on the lineup, and you're nicely setting up for a 1-3-1. And when you're M19, when you've drafted yourself this teamfight composition, it is so integral that you do not fall behind during the laning phase, because you want to force ROX to come to you, and you're not going to be able to do that when you're in such a deficit.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, and I think you really hit it on the head with Mickey being 2 kills up ahead right now. He's got so much mobility, the proto belt completed, and Stejos is going to find Songwon in his own jungle. The red buff's helping out, the crit's on the way, but Stejos is running the wrong direction, and the Fangs get sunk in. Songwon completes the kill, but Vincent Vega tries to get a bullet time off, only to be grasped by the Nether, and it's going to be the Voidlings to secure the kill for Key. Licorice is all alone, Songwon under tower, trying to get away from the Toad. With Kira in tow right now, Mickey looking to go back in for the redive, and the gray health is on for Licorice, but Mickey comes back in, and it's Songun that secures the kill.
Great aggression from ROX Tigers, picking themselves up another 3 kills, but they may be looking for more as Mickey. Going on to Kira.
He's always going in. Kira is going to find himself on the wrong side of the baseball bat. He is able to get away from danger, but he's down summoner spells, down in health. Nothing to stop ROX from securing first tower blood, and they do it.
Now ROX did a great job of utilizing the fact that they had push on bot, they had the timing on red already from very early on into the game, and Stajox, he wanted to try and protect it, and he's going to try again.
Yeah, Songwon and Key are going to actually be forced back from the red buff right now, but they're going to be able to get out of danger, and, well, Vincent Vega should be able to secure that red buff alongside PvP Stejos. Since Ivern can give him, well, receiving him at the same time. But great move from Rox. They've opened up this bottom side of the map. They've got the vision secure. Let's take a look at how it all went down on the aftermath. This is the red buff.
Now this is the advantage of picking Elise into an Ivern. He doesn't really do much damage. He's really not that tanky, and it's very easy to invade his jungle. I think it was a big mistake from Stajox to move away from Licorice. But regardless, he wanted to try and get closer to his AD carry. But in fact, he just set up his AD carry to fail because then Vincent overextends far too far away from his tower. That allows Key to lock him down. And this is where you think that M19 should just disengage. Licorice oversteps once more, and then Mickey has already made the roam down bottom to set up for the punish and to get themselves that first tower. Really good aggression from Rox Tigers, and this is where they make a lot of their leads over in the LCK. They funnel the fact that Sungwon has a good advantage, and they constantly push it, and they use it to get further objectives on the map.
All I gotta tell you is a pleasure to see Key play this Malzahar right now. You can see why Rox Tigers really prefer this choice. They played it 5 times in LCK as most played support champion, and even though on 7.3 it's been a little bit less effective, it's still coming up huge for them. Another grasp on the key targets every single time that's allowed them to set up 2 big dives in a row. So they secure themselves a Dragon. Eyeballs on the mid right now. Is Songyun already there? Vincent's gonna have to strut away, but the tower, it's looking pretty unhealthy right now, and M19, they're scrambling to defend.
Rox just want to keep up the pressure. They know that they have a really big window with Elise right now, where she is so much stronger than the Ivern. This is one of the reasons as to why Korea were wondering why Ivern was so popular in the West, because he does have this big early game window that you can punish. And this is how you effectively punish it. You do what you can to not only prioritize in farming, you get that early level advantage, you have pushing lanes, and you basically have full control over the Ivern's jungle. And Sungwon, he hasn't lost the bottom half of the jungle. There has been constant vision. He is always lighting the enemy jungle up, knowing where Ivern is, and he's denied him a lot of farm.
And they can now do this 1-3-1 that their composition was built for. So they just leave Mickey on the bottom side, constantly threatening Kira. It's forcing M19 to kind of go around the safest route possible in the map, but there's vision even as deep as, near enough to their base. And you can see Key and Mickey just waiting to see if they can get a catch off, dodging away from the root caller. Songwon in tow looking for this mid lane. They should be able to knock it down pretty soon. And there's also a big mini wave that Linderang is charging into the top turret. So for M19, not a whole lot's going well for them right now. At least they have some item spikes to work with. We have the Trinity Force on the Corki. That can give Kira some big damage. But they're going to need to be able to find a catch off on a Rox, and that seems to be scarce lately.
Look at the possible dive coming out from the Rox Tigers once again in the mid. It will take a little while because Songyun not the strongest pusher on this Jhin, but the fact that they fell behind so early on is now being rectified as they dive the mid lane.
Parallel convergence, and they jump onto Licorice. That's a big bullet time, though. It's still Mickey picking up the killing spree onto Licorice. Daisy trying to do what she can, but it's not just going to be enough right now. Linderang is locked inside the ultimatum. He might give his life for the cause, but all the same, it has been a 1-for-2 in favor of M19. But they still lose the turret.
The fact that Rox get themselves a tower is an overall objective gain, which is always something that Rox want to prioritize. The pushing power isn't the strongest right now for M19, so they may be able to get a bit of chip damage onto this tier 1, but very likely the Rox is still going to be overall happy with what they've been able to get.
Now here's something that M19 are going to really need to try and combat the pushing power. Rift Herald is not necessarily the biggest objective in the game by far, but it definitely will help Smurf to be able to out-push against Linderang, considering how far behind he fell early.
If Smurf can get himself the Trinity Force, he's going to be doing much better against Linderang because he's working towards that 2-item spike. But the big issue here was the fact that Linderang didn't really need to join the fight. The fact that Rox go for this dive is clean enough. They should just disengage at this point because they're already forcing them back from the tower. And then they should just prioritize on getting that main objective. If they just lost Elise and they traded 1-for-1, then it would have been fine. But Linderang, he tries to come in from the flank, and it was just a little bit overzealous. He could have continued applying pressure top. They may have even been able to bait out the TP from Smurf, and that would have just enabled Linderang to better push in the top lane. So, a little bit of a mistake, but overall, Rox get themselves the advantage.
Yes, they do. You can see where the focus is when Rox have forced these fights. They've been trying to blow up Licorice before he can really do anything to save his carry. Even though Vincent's dealing a lot of damage, it's not going to be enough. It looks like Mickey and Songwon diving in. They find Vincent once again and take him down. Mickey with his 4th kill of the game. Now Licorice and PvP Stejos very low here as Kira's arrived to try and push them back, but Linderang is in behind the tower. Songyun gets one. They knock down a second. It's a double kill for the Jhin. Smurf can't really get involved because he's down on the bottom side, and Linderang is the guy I wanted to talk about who gave his life once again.
Mickey is playing so aggressively on this Echo. We were wondering, what is this guy, right? He is known to be the superstar, known to either go hard or go home, and so far this game, he is really going hard. He is utilizing those early kills and the early gold advantage very effectively, and this reminds me very much of the Rox versus BBQ game that we saw last week, where they got a very good early start, and they just maintain the pressure. They just move around the map so cleanly that M19 is suffocating under the pressure.
Yeah, and this Echo pick for Mickey is really working out because he can dive so deep and still come back out ahead. It all started with him jumping onto Vincent, and then he just didn't react fast enough.
This is one of the problems that you have also playing a Misfortune. It makes it so easy for a Fed Echo to just dive onto the backline and clean up. Linderang, a bit overzealous perhaps, to going for that dive in a 1 versus 3, but he does enable his team to get a couple extra kills and be able to take or get a bit of damage down onto that tier 2 turret in the top lane.
Yes, indeed, he does. So, 5,000 gold advantage for Rox Tigers right now. They have 3 towers, and M19 have been unable to knock one down, but Rox clearly in the lead this game. It's almost 20 minutes now as Baron's about to hit the rift. Mickey pushing into this jungle. Kira's been trying to play as back as he can, getting a few revenge kills, but they haven't been able to find too much this game at all.
Well, now if you're Rox Tigers, you just set up the 1-3-1. M19 are going to struggle to deal with the pressure because you're sending your Corki off into a signing, which isn't a bad thing, but he's not going to be able to do very much against the Echo. You're constantly going to have the wave shoved underneath your tower. There's always going to be that risk of a possible dive. He has a lot of damage under his belt, so one overstep can result in effectively your life, especially when your exhaust is unavailable. And we've already seen that Linderang is able to come out ahead of Smurf up in the top lane. So now we see Key going for a dive.
There we go. Key gets the Nether Grasp on, and Linderang in a 1v2, or 2v1 rather, nearly knocks down Smurf, but Licorice brings Vincent to the party once again. They open up the bullet time. Key takes a few shots of it. Linderang as well. Licorice looking to try and find a revenge kill, but you can see Songyun running up the lane or running through the jungle. M19 don't want to pursue any farther. They back off.
Now, this is actually a bit of poor coordination from the Rox Tigers, because note that Mickey had actually gone back to base when that play was happening. If you're going to force a play on one side of the map, you need to be able to punish M19 for reacting on the other side of the map. Note that there were 3 members sent up into the top lane, and Rox didn't do anything. They could have just lost 1 or 2 members of their teammate, and they would have been able to get any objectives back. But fortunately for them, they have such good vision control around the bot side that they're able to make a rotation round to the Dragon and pick that objective up. But you can see where these windows of opportunities have come when Rox play in the LCK, because sometimes this level of coordination does occur, and it leaves windows to the enemy team to come back in.
For M19, they're always a team that are going to try to fight no matter what, so you could see them pushing, but they came up empty-handed that time around. And Rox, they were able to get another Dragon, as you said. It was an Ocean Drake for them, a little extra regeneration.
And I think you make a really good point there, because M19, when you go back and watch their games, you see that even in deficits, they will force fights. They are not afraid.
It doesn't matter how far down they are.
It doesn't matter. 10,000 gold, 20,000 gold. If they see an opportunity, they will just go for the fight. They want to look for an opportunity because they just hate to give away the game for free. And they always believe that if they get that one good fight, all of a sudden they can swing the game on its head, and they have the composition to do it. It only takes one overstep, a bad grouping from Rox for M19 to just force that unsuspecting engage, and for them to suddenly find some leeway back into the game.
And they've got some serious damage too. I mean, it is worth noting, you look at their composition, it's built for team fighting right now. 2 Trinity Force power spikes, 1 on Smurf, 1 on Kira. And Vincent, has the all-important Edge of Night, as well as his Yomu. So he's having a lot of penetration right now. Licorice is looking to try and cut off Linderang, but it's the bottom tower that Rox Tigers are focusing on, and they knock it down without too much trouble. Keeping that gold lead going, still 5,000. Daisy now tanking the damage of Rox Tigers. Will be able to back off. That bottom jungle has not been M19 since minute 5.
No, it has not. They really have struggled to maintain control over it, as we see a bit of a 1v1 going on.
But Licorice's gonna even those odds for now. Exhaust is on, and he's just gonna try to keep his top laner alive. Smurf gets spat back out. Grand Challenge is on, and Linderang is still making this play happen. Smurf is on the run. Licorice flashes to body block, and Smurf's nearly going to go down as the curtain call opens up. One shot is all it takes, Songyun. And even though Licorice, he might just be able to kill this Fiora. Oh, it is already too late, the tongue! He gets licked.
Wasn't quite able to get the kill. He was very close, though. But the fact that Linderang was able to buy so much time, but again, Rocks don't do anything with it. There's such a big minion wave in the mid lane right now that they could have been using to push, and all of Linderang's efforts kind of feel wasted because he was in a 1 versus 2. This was a great opportunity for Rocks to gain more advantages across the map, and they're unable to do so. But you can see that Mickey, his pressure has not stopped down in the bottom lane. He is making Kira's life so difficult in this 1 versus 1.
Yeah, Kira's definitely not having a great game. Even on this Cork, he's been pushed back over and over again. Vincent's going to be on wave clear duty in the mid, but that means Key and Songwon can free push on the top tower. So they just keep finding holes in the defense of M19 and punishing them. That's 5 towers now to 0 as Licrit is caught by Mickey. Gets eat up for just a second, tries to proto belt away, but not going to be enough. It's a lot of damage out of the Tahm Kench, but all the same, Mickey's gonna have to flash the wall. And man, that was close. Over, phase dive, Vincent even followed. Man, Mickey just got out of it, and that's gonna mean Baron now for Rocks Tigers.
Really good play from Mickey, drawing 3 members down to the bottom side, being able to get away with his life. Means that Rocks can make this cross-map play and they can get that objective in the top side, which will result in the Baron. And when you look at their 1-3-1 power now, M19 are really, really going to struggle to find answers.
Yeah, they're in trouble right now, and even a teleport in the mid is going to get canceled. Mickey just thought, oh, it's fine, I can go back down to bottom. Maybe a little bit too hyphy there, but at least he doesn't complete the channel. All the same, Rocks are just in such a massive lead, and that was the kind of play you were criticizing them for not making earlier when Linderang was in the 1v2 situation. This time, Rocks have rectified, and at 25 minutes, they're all but finishing the game at this point.
Well, they still need to break into the base of M19, and that is when M19 are actually the most dangerous. Really, when you put their backs against the wall is when they are most likely to bite. So now that we'll likely see them start to potentially group, try and get a pick onto Rocks, but Rocks don't ever need to group. They just need to keep at arm's length. Because as long as they have this side lane advantage with Linderang up in the top lane, yes, he's a little bit behind in terms of kills, but with the Baron buff and the fact that he's being on a Fiora, actually going for a Trinity Force into Ravenous Hydra rather than the usual Black Cleaver that we're used to seeing, he is pretty strong. Yep, definitely the case.
Ooh, speaking of strong, Vincent still does damage. Never get used to that when you see a lot of support misfortunes, then you see an AD carry one and you're like, oh yeah, that's a champion that hurts.
Yep, she really does.
Still, Rocks Tigers have a fair amount of ways to keep this M19 squad at bay. Linderang leading the charge up top side. Mickey going down to the bottom once again, and they keeping the drag on. Smurf is not going to be able to do a whole lot against this Baron-empowered minions right away, and Mickey still pushing. Going to require more than just Kira in response. Sweeping, there we go, Linderang tanking a few bits of damage. Licrit came in to give some relief, but now Steos, the tower, well, it was Daisy that was tanking things up, but there's still a fair amount of Baron-empowered minions that Vincent's slowly clearing away. He opens the bullet time, and Songyun taking a little bit low, forcing the ladder to flash out of that one. Still Mickey's on the bottom side. It just seems like the space is very close to getting cracked open right now. Linderang not going to push too deep at the moment.
M19 is being spread very thin. While they might want to fight, they don't really have the best engage tools. They're looking for opportunities, but they are really struggling as Rocks just continue to play at just arm's reach, constantly just throw out poke and slowly chip away at these towers using the Baron-empowered minions. This is exactly how you want to play if you are the Rocks Tigers. There's no need to be overzealous. There's no need to go for any hyper-aggressive dives. Just take your time. Eventually, you will be able to break into the base.
Yeah, well, Linderang, he might need to break out the ultimatum right now, but Smurf is going to get nommed up. Keys come once again, so it supports and tops, and Linderang just lunges for Smurf. Songyun opens up the curtain call. M19 look like they are scattering to the wind. Steos has to flash over the last shot of the curtain call, but it doesn't matter because Key follows in and takes him down. And now with only Kira and Vincent remaining, it is going to be oh so hard for M19 to hold on to their base.
M19 just doing what they can. Maybe if they can shut down Linderang, it's a way for them back into the game. But with a good collapse from the Rocks Tigers and all these Baron-empowered minions, they're not going to have a base left, and they're likely going to lose the game.
Yeah, that's one Nexus turret. Rocks realize they don't even need to take down the middle inhibitor. It's Vincent just trying to keep them at bay here. Even with Kira pushing around the other side, they've still got Baron-empowered minions. Key is going to get taken down by Vincent, but they've lost the last Nexus turret. It's only the Nexus remaining. They're trying to make the hero plays, but Vincent's already gone down. The Crit's back up off Fountain, but the Nexus is going to get taken out. 28 minutes into the game, and Rocks Tigers with a dominating victory.
Very clean game from the Rocks Tigers. They utilized that Elise pick so effectively. Something that Songwon has brought out throughout the LCK, something that he really has a lot of proficiency on, and he just stuck to his playstyle, which is very much get that early level 3, early level 4, go for an aggressive invade, and we saw he pretty much owned the bottom half of M19's jungle throughout the entirety of that game.
Yeah, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, and he never let Sejos really get any counter jungle off or even counter with any pressure because he was spotted so many times. In M19, I mean, they were thrown completely off, I feel. They tried to get this team fighting composition. They were given a few powerful picks like the Camille, but it didn't really matter in the end of the day because the ROX Tigers were able to play their game without breaking a sweat.
And really the game swung open when we look at how that dive happened down in the bottom lane, because remember that M19's bottom lane had actually gotten themselves a win in the 2 versus 2.
Right.
So they were looking pretty good. They had that advantage, but they just weren't quite able to take advantage of that when Mickey was able to roam down bot. You had the Elise come to, these 2 powerhouse dive champions that just were so easily able to catch out these low mobility bottom lane.
You can see why Mickey loves this Echo. It is just such a perfect champion for him because even if he goes too far, oh, that's fine. I've got counter break. I'm out of there, no problem. And he used it so well in the plays down bot, forcing Kira off towers. There's just so much pressure that M19 couldn't really match. And even though you could see the power spikes, the Trinity Forces coming in for some of the M19 members, it just didn't really make a big difference because they weren't able to make any solo plays, outplays. The crit was pretty much in every lane trying to catch people, but he himself got caught by the Malzahar.
And we have to remember that this isn't all bad news for M19, because even though they have lost this best of 1, they will now move into the losers bracket, where they'll have another opportunity to play in a best of 3 against the loser of H2K versus Hong Kong Esports, which will be happening after this. So there are still plenty of opportunities for the team, even though they struggled. In my eyes, there were signs of life. I'd like to see Sejos on something a little bit more aggressive. Yes, he had a lot of jungle bans away, but then maybe you look to prioritize early junglers. The one thing that we saw from the ROX Tigers is they banned away the Rek'Sai, they banned away the Graves as well, and you see now that Sejos doesn't play Lee Sin. He had a perfect opportunity to pick it into the Elise, but he just doesn't play it. He hasn't played it during the regular season.
Camille. They could have put him on that champion.
They could have
taken a random tank top. Shen was left open through the entire pick and ban phase, so I feel like they can definitely take from this some lessons to mix it up. And whoever they go up against, whether it's H2K or Hong Kong Esports, I think they can definitely take those lessons to at least take one game, maybe take the series, because you're not out until you at least face the best of 3. So there's hope for them still.
But when you look at the ROX Tigers, in my eyes, it's very much that we're seeing the same ROX Tigers that we saw in the LCK. A bottom lane that struggles in the 2 versus 2. They definitely seem to get caught out of position, don't properly understand how to manage the wave in particular, and they just overstep and they get aggressed upon. Meanwhile, in the top half of the map, they seem to be very successful. They seem to do very well. I'd like to see Linderang maybe on a bit more of a tanky champion to better facilitate the team. But Mickey, he seems to be having a fantastic performance.
Yeah, Mickey's having a great time. But now we're going to talk to some of the winners. Let's go send it over to Munchables, who's standing on stage.
Thank you very much, guys. What a phenomenal game. Absolute bloodbath. And I'm going to be joined here by Mickey, fresh off of this win. And now, Mickey, you're a player with a bit of a reputation here of sort of go hard or go home. What was the catalyst this game in that you were able to go hard?
네, 미키 선수 이번 경기 승리 축하드리고요. 그래서 이제 미키 선수는 약간 LCK에서 좀 하드 캐리하거나 아니면 좀 망하는 선수라고 약간 그런 평판이 있는데요. 그런데 이번 경기에서는 어느 시점쯤에 이제 난 하드 캐리 할 수 있다, 약간 그 느낌이 들었는지 그것 좀 대해서 말씀해 주세요.
일단 감사드리고요. 그냥 1레벨부터 뭔가 잘 되는 게 제가 캐리할 수 있는 그림이 나왔고, 근데 딱히 제가 캐리했다는 느낌보다는 저희 오늘 모든 팀원들이 다 잘해줘가지고 저도 잘 성장하고 그냥 생각했던 대로 잘 흘러가서 게임을 이긴 것 같아요.
So I felt that I could carry from level 1 just from the beginning of the game, but rather than saying that like I carried this game, and I think our entire team did really well, and we all kind of just grew pretty well together, and then the game just kind of went on from there.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that you certainly won that one as a team. But now, moving forward into the tournament, when you look at some of the other Western teams that you're going to be going up against, especially the EU LCS teams, do you think it's going to be a similar story? Do you think it's going to be as solid as the victories?
그래서 그러면 저도 이제 그 팀이 전체적으로 잘했다고 그거는 동의하고요. 그래서 이제 지금 이제 유럽 LCS 팀들 상대로 이렇게 약간 그런 똑같은 그림으로 나갈 것 같은지 그거에 대해서 좀 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
저희가 아직 한 경기밖에 치르지 않아서 잘 모르겠는데 저희 컨디션만 좋고 하던 대로 하면은 계속 이대로 유지하면서 좋은 성적 낼 수 있지 않을까 생각하고 있어요.
So we've only played one game, so it's hard to say how we'll do against the other European teams. But if we play the same way that we did right now, and if we just keep up our condition, like be in a good condition into our next games, I think we should be able to put on a good performance.
Okay, so final question. As a mid laner who is as mechanically powerful as yourself, which other mid laner in this tournament are you most looking forward to going up against?
그래서 이제 마지막 질문으로요. 그래서 이제 그 미키 선수는 이제 피지컬이 좋은 선수라고 이렇게 약간 그 알려져 있는데요. 그래서 이제 요 대회에서 그 이제 다른 미드라이너 중에서 누구를 제일 상대하고 싶은지 그거에 대해서 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
딱히 누굴 만나고 싶은 상대는 없는데 그래도 한 명 꼽자면은 플래시 울브즈의 메이플 선수 한번 만나보고 싶어요.
I don't have anyone that I want to particularly meet, but if I had to choose one, it'd be Flash Wolves' Maple.
Okay, well, hopefully we'll be able to see that matchup later in the tournament. We're going to pass it back now to our analyst desk to break that game down a little bit more.
Thank you very much, Munchables. And I gotta say, he was fairly humble in that interview there for a guy that is known to be this dominating force. He definitely held his tongue, I would say, just a little bit. But it was anything but it was a dominant performance from the ROX Tigers there against M19. It was a sub 30-minute win. They looked like they absolutely steamrolled from the get-go. And Papa Smithy, something that you picked up on was the Ivern pick. I mean, you said that Korea don't play Ivern. They don't think Ivern's very good, and I think they just might have shown us why.
I mean, at the end of the day, this was always going to be a fun one because it was 1-3-1 versus the Siege. Some degree team fight, and basically a Siege comp with that Ivern. The thing about Ivern is if he's kind of left to do his own thing, like if he gets through the early game really comfortably, if he has pushing lanes and can invade, very powerful champion. But in this game, Songwon's playstyle, especially recently on this release, has been the invasion. And if he has lanes getting soakers, if he has places to be pressured upon, Ivern from behind really seems to struggle.
Which also does not make sense when you want to play Ivern, you want to have those pushing lanes, you want to have that strong early game. When you have your mid laner start Cole into a matchup like Echo, you can easily go with your Corruption Potion. Very straightforward, have a little bit more presence in the matchup as opposed to just kind of saying, yeah, we'll make a puss the early game, no problem, we'll get to the grouping stage. They never allowed any of that happen. I was so impressed by the proactivity that ROX showed this game. It was just a complete clapping from start to end. And just like Mickey said, they thought they would win from level 1. That's pretty BM.
And the biggest issue for the Ivern, though, when you go this 1-3-1, Fiora's winning the matchup, Echo, no one could enter bot lane because he got fed in the early fights. Suddenly, Ivern can't prep and mark camps because the jungle's being taken away by the ROX Tigers. He's getting less and less gold. He's not even getting to his fairly cheap redemptions and early items at a good speed. And that's when you kind of knew the game was over.
We've got a replay here of one of the successes of those early invades. The vision that was set up allowed them to dive in the bot lane. And that was one of the big turning moments, you would say, that really put the game on its head for M19. They really felt like from that point, there wasn't many ways they could come back. So let's take a quick look at this replay. When it's ready. We'll get there in a second. But essentially, what we're going to look at is the moment when they were diving bot lane, Fiora teleports down, and this is after Fiora had already got the 1v1. Let's have a look here.
So this is immediately Malzahar opens up onto the bottom lane, and Misfortune tries to channel her bullet time, thinking maybe she can take on 3 people, but no. The 4-man dive, even though Sangwon will go down, this is a huge bonus for this team because they're able to pressure the turret. And notice the minimap, there's nothing happening for Albus or M19 to take. He tries to come in with a final kill, but a little bit over-eager.
I think with 3-3, when this starts to happen, you're like, okay, could this be the turning point? But Mickey on the Echo has a win already. He loves these assassin split-pushing champions, and the snapback with the ultimate to pick up the kill on the Cork. It was just the start of some of the stylish stuff that Mickey was able to pull up. So it was really clean there on the back end, and he's practiced on the Echo. He's played it through other metas. He blind picked it, and he certainly made it work.
I'm glad you bring that up with the Echo, because right now, Corki being such a prevalent middle pick, there's not a whole lot of picks that can into that matchup. And when you pick Corki, Echo is one of those champions that can easily lane into this pick, and you can get away with it. So a Echo player that's really good at it can easily lane into the Echo. And it was just an easy picking, no-brainer, take the Echo right then and there. And he just did so much work. I love the Proto Belt build, just being able to close that gap with the face dive, get a little bit closer, hit him with the bat.
And a lot of that was due to the pressure that Songwan had put in the jungle early on. I mean, he went into that blue side jungle. He was not afraid of just punishing Ivern at every given opportunity. And that vision that they set up, that presence, they allowed them to facilitate that bot lane tier 1. Now, secondly, because of what happened to Echo, he got so fed, and Mickey was just a dominant force in that bot lane. It allowed them then to facilitate this 1-3-1 with Fiora winning the matchup versus Camille, which we saw over and over again went pretty badly for the Camille every time she tried to engage, even 2 versus 1. Echo also had success in the bot lane, and they managed to get so many objectives, notably that Baron, which we'll see in a replay that we're going to show you in just a second.
I mean, the timings are really specific on comps like this. Fiora's supposed to win after a couple of items, but got the solo kill early. And then you have a scenario here where Mickey, he's so far ahead, the amount of time he buys here is just insane. We saw the teleport coming through, he skips past, he even draws the flash away from Vincent, gets over, doesn't even die. If he dies, they get the Baron. It's a good trade. When he gets out, it's just a ridiculous trade.
That chase is just a metaphorical representation of the entire series. Look, Crit trying to do his best, chasing Mickey, not even close. Over the Dragon Pit, Baron being taken away, and the objective focus was great, but as you mentioned, once that kill happens on the Fiora and Camille matchup, game's over. You're not coming back from that matchup. Like, considering
Pro player right here with the closed narratives. Game's over. 4 minutes in, we're done. It was a 1-for-1 across the map. Game's over.
When it's a skill matchup of like 2 duelists, come on, right? 2 duelists.
Well, I mean, the reason why I agree with Crumbs is that, again, Fiora's supposed to win eventually. When she wins early and then the Echo gets fed, suddenly the 1-3-1, both those split pushes, no one can enter that side of the map. And when that's top and bottom, the Ivern can't get these jungle camps. They fall behind. They really get stifled out of the game.
Absolutely. And I've got to add there, with Fiora, just dominating early on, that gave that huge split push pressure that we saw, because that allowed them then to facilitate. And when you're stuck in the mid lane, when you're focused in on the mid lane, you're never going to get anywhere across the map. Those side lanes become so important for pressuring. Now, guys, if you want to check out the Score Esports, that is our official mobile sponsor, you can go and check out all of the league news, the league player profiles. You can get all of the guides and tips and tricks over there at the Score Esports. So, guys, I mean, I use it on a daily basis. Do you?
Every time. I love it for all my League of Legends necessities.
Score Esports, very loyal sponsor of IEM.
And do you know what? I've got it on my HP laptop. I've got it on my phone. I've got the Score Esports
You're
everywhere.
nailing this segment right here.
And with that, we're going to cut to a short break before we get ready for the next series. Don't go anywhere. This next series, H2K versus Hong Kong Esports, it's all the H's. It's going to be great. Who?
Junglers and carry, but more importantly in this matchup, his synergy with Kira to gank mid lane is really
dealing a lot of damage. It's not going to be enough. It looks like Mickey and Songwan diving in. They find Vincent once again and take him down. Mickey with his 4th kill of the game. Now Licorice and PvP Steos very low here as Kira's arrived to try and push them back, but Linderang is in behind the tower. Songyun gets 1. They knock down a 2nd. It's a double kill for the Jhin. Smurf.
They really have struggled to maintain control over it, as we see a bit of a 1v1 going on.
But Licrit's gonna even those odds for now. Exhaust is on, and he's just gonna try to keep his top laner alive. Smurf gets bat back out, and Linderang is still making this play happen. Smurf is on the run. Licrit flashes to
utilize that Elise pick